My mother told me to get my ass to date. The woman in question was Serafina Sterling, the Ice Queen CEO of a multi-billion-dollar empire. Rumor was she had bipolar disorder and was dangerously unstable. To sabotage this corporate merger disguised as a date, I decided to lean into my established persona, a complete and utter screw-up. So why was she looking at me like I was some kind of priceless treasure? Chapter 1. The call came from my mother. Her tone left no room for argument. Julian Vance, get yourself to Aria. Now, you have a date. Your date is Serafina Sterling. And if you dare mess this up, I'm cutting off every single one of your cards. Me, Julian Vance, sole heir to the Vance family fortune. My life has a single, two-word objective, Coast. To achieve this noble goal, I've spent over 20 years carefully cultivating the citywide image of a lazy, useless trust fund brat. A blind date with Serafina Sterling, the legendary corporate titan who was as ruthless in the boardroom as she was emotionally volatile everywhere else. This was a direct threat to my coasting. It had to be destroyed. Aria, the most exclusive rooftop restaurant in Manhattan. Private elevator, reservation list a year long. I made sure to arrive a full half-hour late, whistling some obnoxious pop song completely off-key as I strolled into the private dining room. The woman across the table looked up. In that instant, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. She wore a tailored white pantsuit, her long hair swept up in an elegant twist that exposed the graceful line of her neck. Her features were so perfect they looked like they'd been sculpted, but her eyes were cold, like they held glaciers that hadn't thawed in a millennium. So this was Serafina Sterling. The legend was an understatement. Wow, absolute 10. That face, that posture. Damn, it's a shame she's an ice sculpture and a workaholic. And they say she has bipolar disorder, swings between mania and depression like a pendulum. Marrying her would be a full-time job. I need to get this over with fast. 3 sentences, tops, before she blocks my number and I can get back to my life. While my mind was running its mouth, my face wore a lazy, flippant grin. I dropped into the chair opposite her and kicked my feet up, leaning back. Serafina, right? Sorry about that. Traffic was a real beast. Serafina's hand, which had been reaching for a glass of water, paused for a fraction of a second. She looked at me, and for the first time, a flicker of confusion entered those Arctic eyes. I paid it no mind, plowing ahead with the performance. Waiter, menus. I slid a menu in front of her with a grand flourish. Don't be shy, Serafina. Order whatever you want. It's on me. Well, on my dad. Anyway, so who cares? Hurry up, order, and let's bounce. This chair is killing my back. It's no match for my ergonomic gaming chair at home. Serafina's expression grew even stranger. There was no sign of contempt. In fact, was that the corner of her mouth twitching upward must be a trick of the light. Her voice was as cool and crisp as her appearance. I'll let you decide, Mr. Vance. Done. I snapped my fingers. We'll start with the priciest caviar you've got, and bring us a bottle of the 82 Lafite. This place's caviar is salty enough to gag a whale, and their Lafite tastes like rubbing alcohol mixed with tap water. Only an idiot trying to show off would order it. If she actually goes for it, her taste is garbage. My own homemade infused bourbon is 10 times better. Serafina's knuckles whitened around her water glass. She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw a ripple disturb the frozen surface of her gaze. After a few seconds, she turned to the stunned waiter. Just a glass of warm water for me. Thank you. Then, she looked back at me. And no wine. I'm allergic to alcohol. Huh. She's going off script. Isn't she supposed to look at me with disgust, call me a cliché, and storm out? Why is she still here? Okay, timed up the dosage. I cleared my throat, leaned forward, and plastered what I hoped was a devastatingly handsome and deeply greasy smile on my face. Serafina, you are gorgeous. How about you be my girlfriend? Look, I'm not much for ambition, but my family's got more money than God. You stick with me. I guarantee you a lifetime of designer clothes and sports cars. You could buy anything you want, anytime you want. That had to be disgusting enough, right? I braced myself, fully expecting her to throw that glass of warm water in my face. Instead, Serafina just watched me. Her gaze was no longer cold. It was analytical, like she was studying a rare and fascinating specimen. A moment later, her phone, lying on the table, vibrated. The screen lit up with what looked like a work message from her assistant. I saw her brow furrow instantly. The ice in her eyes reformed, now laced with a sharp edge of irritation and pain. Was this it? Was the bipolar disorder about to make an appearance? Perfect. Let the meltdown commence. Flip the table, walk out, and set me free. TSK. Judging by that look, there's trouble at the office. Her assistant has the worst timing, texting her now. They're just asking for a B down. It's probably a problem with a quarterly report, numbers not adding up. Does she really need her boss for that? Just get the finance and operations heads in a room, cross-reference the data sets. You could find the discrepancy in 30 minutes. Morons. This is really cutting into my evening. I was practically rubbing my hands together, waiting for the fireworks. But then Serafina picked up her phone. Her long, slender fingers flew across the screen. A few seconds later, she put it down and looked up at me again. And something impossible happened. The frustration and pain in her expression had vanished. Her eyes were still cool, but the suffocating pressure was gone. She looked at me with a mix of inquiry, curiosity, and something else. Something I couldn't decipher. Then, as I sat there in stunned silence, her lips parted, and she spoke the 4 words that shattered my entire worldview. All right, we can give it a try. We can give it a try. The greasy smile froze on my face. My ears were ringing, like I'd just taken a right hook from a heavyweight. What the hell? Try what? Trying to have me cremated and my ashes scattered? Is she insane? I just acted like the biggest dirtbag on the planet, and she agreed? Wait, does she actually like this kind of thing? Serafina saw the dumbstruck look on my face and a flicker of a smile. So faint and fast I thought I'd imagined it. Crossed her lips. You heard me correctly, she repeated. Her voice was still cool, but it was a few degrees warmer than before. We can start by dating, getting to know each other. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. This wasn't in the script. The script said she was supposed to curse me out, blacklist my entire existence, and call off this ridiculous merger date. Then I'd go home and get back to the serious business of coasting. What was this? Mission failed successfully? I'm so screwed. So completely, totally screwed. If my mom finds out I landed the Ice Queen CEO on the first try, she'll be forcing me in the office every single day. My life of leisure. My quest to master all the regional American barbecue styles. My carefully nurtured bourbon infusions. Is it all over? My mind was a cinematic montage of tragedy. The blood drained from my face, leaving me with the expression of a man on death row. Seeing my pale complexion, Serafina, instead of getting angry, actually picked up the serving utensils and placed a piece of pan-seared branzino, a dish I hadn't even ordered, onto my plate. You don't look well, she said calmly. You should eat something. I stared at the piece of fish like it was a hot coal. This woman is certifiable, completely insane. The more of a degenerate I act, the more interested she gets. Is this what they call a masochist? Serafina's hand, the one holding the fork, paused again. She looked up, giving me a long, deep stare. It was a complex look, the kind you might give a child throwing a nonsensical tantrum. I don't like caviar or expensive red wine, she said suddenly, offering an explanation. I prefer simple, well-prepared food. I said nothing. Well, that makes 2 of us, especially this branzino. The sear is perfect, crispy skin without overcooking the flesh. The chef here is actually good. Too bad I've completely lost my appetite. As if she couldn't see the constipated agony on my face, Serafina took a piece for herself and began to eat, taking small, elegant bites. Every movement was graceful, almost hypnotic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was holding back laughter. I ate the rest of that meal in a state of torment, each bite tasting like ash. Serafina, on the other hand, seemed to have a perfectly fine appetite. We didn't speak another word for the rest of the dinner. My inner monologue, however, never shut up. This is untenable. I have to find a way to make her hate me. I've got it. Next date, I'll take her to a 24-hour gaming lounge for an all-nighter, followed by greasy chili dogs from a food truck at 3 in the morning. There is no way a billionaire CEO can handle that. Across the table, Serafina's lips curved again, a barely perceptible secret smile. When dinner ended, I bolted from the restaurant like a man escaping the gallows. The second I got in my car, my mom called, her voice electric with a joy I hadn't heard in years. Julian, you made me so proud. The Sterlings just called. They said Serafina was very impressed with you. Very. The world went dark. Mom, there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. My mother cut me off, practically giddy. Serafina told her parents herself. She said you were, well, authentic, not pretentious, not like all the other slick phonies out there. I was speechless. Authentic, not pretentious. I was putting on an act so intense, I was risking a personality disorder. And she calls it authentic? Authentic my ass. Did she somehow mistake my internal roasting for my actual personality? No way. Mind reading isn't a real thing, right? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Something is very, very wrong here. I hung up, slammed my foot on the gas, and my sports car roared into the night, leaving a trail of my shattered hopes and dreams behind it. Chapter 3. The next few days were a masterclass in anxiety. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be her, calling to schedule another date. I didn't leave the house for 3 days straight. I threw myself into perfecting a new batch of peach-infused bourbon, hoping the alcohol would numb the impending doom. My life is over. My grand plan for a life of sophisticated laziness is going up in flames before it even started. What the hell does Serafina Sterling see in me? Did my act work too well? Does she think I'm so harmless that I'm the perfect, controllable husband for a merger? As I strained the peach pulp from the bourbon, my phone rang. The screen lit up with her name, Serafina Sterling. My hand jerked, nearly sending the entire jug of infused liquor crashing to the floor. The inevitable had arrived. Taking a deep breath, I answered, forcing my voice into a lazy drawl. Well, hello, beautiful. Miss me already? 2 seconds of silence on the other end. Where are you? Serafina's cool voice came through the line. Just hanging out at home, bored out of my mind. I continued the charade, thinking we should go out and have some fun. Bring it on. Let's do this. I've already got the grimiest dive bars of the outer boroughs tour all planned out. It's an experience you'll never forget. I guarantee it. All right, she replied, concise as ever. Stay there. I'll come get you. Click. She hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, completely baffled. She's picking me up? That's not how it's supposed to go. I'm supposed to show up in my obnoxious, hot pink convertible to pick her up, and she's supposed to look at me with utter disdain. Half an hour later, a discreet black Bentley purred to a stop in front of my family's mansion. I had changed into what I considered my most appalling outfit. A t-shirt with a giant, grinning skull on it, jeans with at least a dozen strategically placed holes, and a pair of worn-out flip-flops. I slouched out of the house and slid into the car. The air inside was cool and carried a faint, elegant scent I was starting to associate with her. Serafina, dressed in another impeccable business suit, was reviewing a document on a tablet. She glanced up at me, her eyes lingering on my flip-flops for precisely half a second. A jolt of hope shot through me. Yes, that's the look. Despise me. Despise my footwear. Now kick me out of your ridiculously expensive car. But all Serafina did was say, let's go. The car pulled smoothly away from the curb. So where are we headed? I asked, playing dumb. You're the one who made the plans? Aren't you? She countered. My stomach dropped. How does she know I made plans? Did that assistant of hers, Claire, tell her something? No, that's impossible. I haven't spoken to anyone. I decided to call her bluff. I gave the driver the address of a chaotic food truck park in Queens. The driver, a stoic-looking older man, actually swerved a little. In the front passenger seat, her assistant Claire looked at me in the rearview mirror like I was an alien. Only Serafina remained expressionless. She just said, okay, as if I'd suggested a 3-star Michelin restaurant. The atmosphere in the car was thick with unspoken tension. I decided to make small talk. So what does a busy CEO like you do all day? Please don't talk about work. Please don't talk about work. Stocks, mergers, derivatives. Just the words give me a headache. Serafina turned a page on her tablet. Review contracts. Attends meeting. Occasionally deal with incompetent fools. I let out a dry laugh. See? I knew it. A boring, one-dimensional woman. Her life is nothing but work. How pathetic. The motion of her fingers on the tablet stopped. She looked up, her stunning eyes fixed on me. What about you? She asked. Besides coasting, what is there to your life? Her direct gaze made my skin prickle. Me? My life is a rich tapestry. I bragged. Partying, clubbing, gaming. You gotta live while you're young, right? In reality, I'd much rather be at home working out, trying new recipes, brewing something, or watching an obscure foreign film. Clubs are too loud, bad for your hearing. Serafina's expression softened, became almost distant. Is that so? She said softly. I watch movies too. Oh yeah? You do? I was genuinely curious now. What do you like? The Wolf of Wall Street? The Godfather? A workaholic like her definitely only watches business movies, probably taking notes on how to better exploit her employees. Serafina shook her head. She hesitated for a moment before answering. Little Miss Sunshine. I froze. Little Miss Sunshine? That quirky, dysfunctional family road trip movie? She would watch a movie like that? I looked at her profile, at the way the passing city lights played across her cool features. For a second, the ice seemed to melt at the edges, revealing a flicker of something vulnerable and soft underneath. My heart, against all logic and self-preservation, gave a strange little flutter. This woman was not at all what I had expected. The Queen's Night Market, a chaotic symphony of shouting vendors, sizzling grills, and 1,000 conversations at once. The air was thick with the smell of cumin from the halal carts and the pungent funk of fried kimchi. My flip-flops stuck slightly to the grimy pavement with every step. I felt completely in my element. Serafina, on the other hand, in her designer suit and 3-inch heels, stood out like a diamond in a dumpster. She was an alien goddess who had accidentally beamed down into the middle of a street food festival. Every single person who walked by stared at us. The men stared at Serafina. The women stared at me. Their expressions all screamed the same thing. Beauty and the Beast. What is she doing with him? I couldn't have been more pleased. That's right. Let her feel the judgment of the masses. Let her see that we come from different planets. Go on, run away. The disgust is your cue to leave. I deliberately led her into the most crowded section. Look at this place, Serafina. Isn't it great? I pointed at a carnival game stall. Let's go in a giant stuffed animal. She looked at the rows of cheap, brightly colored plush toys, and her brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. And yet, she just nodded. All right, I stopped. She's still not leaving? Her tolerance is impressive. Fina, today, you're going to get a Ph.D. in low-class entertainment. I steered her toward a food truck selling overloaded chili dogs, the communal condiment station glistening with a fine layer of grease. 2 chili dogs, extra jalapenos on both. I yelled at the guy in the truck. I turned to Serafina with a challenging smirk. Can you handle it? No shame if you can't. We can go. She stared at the vats of chili and cheese, silent. Her assistant, Claire, who had been tailing us at a distance, looked like she was about to have a panic attack, frantically trying to catch my eye. I knew Serafina had a reputation for being a germaphobe with a sensitive stomach. Her diet was supposedly curated by a team of nutritionists. One of these chili dogs would probably land her in the emergency room. Say it's disgusting. Say it's beneath you. Say you're leaving. I chanted internally. Just as I was sure she was about to walk, an arrogant voice cut through the noise. Well, if it isn't Julian Vance. Slumming it with the common folk, are we? I turned. Great. A familiar face. Leo Cartwright. Another trust fund kid from my social circle. One who'd always despised me for, in his words, giving rich kids a bad name. He had a few of his sycophants with him, all smirking at me. Then his eyes landed on Serafina, and his jaw nearly hit the pavement. Serafina? Ms. Sterling? What are you doing here? Leo's face was a work of art, a Picasso of shock, confusion, and raw jealousy. Serafina didn't even grace him with a glance. Leo's face flushed. He redirected his anger at me. Vance, you've got some nerve bringing Ms. Sterling to a dump like this. What are you trying to pull? I dug a finger in my ear, the picture of unconcern. I could do what I want. Last I checked, you're not my parole officer. Perfect timing, you idiot. You're my secret weapon. Lay it on thick. Let her see what kind of trash I associate with. Drive the final nail in this coffin. You. Leo sputtered. He turned to Serafina. Ms. Sterling, please don't let him fool you. He's a useless slacker who's never worked a day in his life. Being with him it's beneath you. A small crowd was starting to gather, whispering and pointing. I was ecstatic. Yes, that's the stuff. Keep it coming. Paint me as the villain, the lowest of the low. Finally, Serafina reacted. She slowly lifted her head, her glacial gaze landing on Leo Cartwright. Are you finished? Leo flinched under her stare, but pressed on. Ms. Sterling, I'm just looking out for you. A humorless, razor-thin smile touched Serafina's lips. My affairs, she said, her voice quiet but carrying like a whip crack, are none of your concern. Furthermore, she paused, her eyes shifting to me, just when I thought she was going to deliver the final blow and announce our breakup. She did something that made every jaw in a 20-foot radius drop. She reached out and slid her arm through mine, linking it with a casual possessiveness. Then, looking directly at the stunned Leo Cartwright, she announced clearly and deliberately, whether he's a slacker or not is for me to decide. And even if he is, I like him. The entire food truck park seemed to fall silent. Leo Cartwright's mouth hung open wide enough to catch flies. The crowd of onlookers froze, half-eaten skewers forgotten in their hands. I was just as dumbfounded. The soft pressure of her arm linked with mine, the cool, clean scent of her perfume cutting through the greasy air. It all short-circuited my brain. I was completely blank. WHW, what did she just say? She likes me? She likes me, the slacker? Has this woman lost her mind? She's willing to say something that crazy just to shut down that moron Leo? Lady, you're the Ice Queen CEO. You're breaking character. Don't you know your brand is at stake? Serafina must have felt my body go rigid. Her grip on my arm tightened. Then she led me to one of the greasy picnic tables and sat down, pulling me with her. She kept her arm linked with mine as she addressed the still gaping food truck owner. Excuse me, 2 chili dogs, but please, no spice on one of them. Thank you. The owner snapped out of his trance and scrambled to fill the order. Leo Cartwright's face had cycled through every shade of red and was now settling on a blotchy purple. To be so thoroughly and publicly humiliated by the woman he clearly worshipped. He looked like he might spontaneously combust. Serafina, you'll regret this, he choked out, before turning and fleeing with his entourage. I watched him go, but I felt no sense of victory. All I wanted to do was cry. Lady, what is your endgame here? After this, the whole city's gossip pages will be screaming. Ice Queen defends trust fund boyfriend in public showdown. How am I supposed to coast with that kind of publicity? The chili dog arrived. One was piled high with red chili and jalapenos. The other was just a plain hot dog in a bun. Serafina released my arm, picked up her food, and took a delicate bite. She ate as if she weren't consuming a $5 street food monstrosity, but dining at the White House. Aren't you going to eat? She asked, looking up at me. I stared at the fiery mess on my plate, and suddenly felt nauseous. Eat? Are you kidding me? My mind is a tangled mess. This woman is terrifying, completely unpredictable. I feel like a fly caught in her web, and she's just toying with me. I picked up the chili dog and forced a few bites. The spice hit the back of my throat like a flamethrower. My eyes started to water. Cough, cough. A pristine, folded handkerchief appeared in front of my face. It was Serafina's. It carried her signature scent. Don't force yourself if you can't handle spicy food, she said, her voice flat, unreadable. I snatched the handkerchief and wiped my mouth, my face burning. I wasn't sure if it was from the chili or from something else entirely. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my head on a loop. Even if he is, I like him. I could still feel the soft touch of her arm, the surprising coolness of her skin. The next morning, I stumbled downstairs with dark circles under my eyes. My mother was sitting in the living room, staring at a tablet and beaming. Julian, darling, come look. You're famous. I leaned over her shoulder and nearly had a stroke. The headline from page 6 read, Shocker. Billionaire CEO Serafina Sterling gets fiercely protective of heir Julian Vance at gritty food truck rally. Another from a TMZ-style blog screamed, Beauty and the Bum? Or NYC's hottest new power couple. A third offered a think piece. What's Julian Vance's secret? How the notorious slacker melted the Ice Queen's heart. The accompanying photo was a high-quality shot of Serafina, arm in mine, glaring daggers at Leo Cartwright. The angle made her look like a fierce guardian knight, and I looked like her timid, well-protected consort. My vision swam. It's over. It's all over. My carefully crafted, useless slacker persona is now kept man for a badass CEO. This is a disaster. My phone began vibrating uncontrollably. A flood of texts from my so-called friends. Jules, you absolute legend. How do you tame Sterling? Give us the secrets. Holy crap. Vance, did you put a spell on her? I threw my phone onto the couch in disgust. Just then it rang again. A number I didn't recognize. I snatched it up. Yeah, what? A steady, professional, but slightly frazzled male voice answered. Mr. Vance? This is Claire Jenkins, Ms. Sterling's executive assistant. It's about Ms. Sterling. There's been an incident. Chapter 6, my stomach clenched. What kind of incident? Don't tell me. The chili dog. Did that $5 chili dog actually put her in the hospital? That makes me an accomplice to assault with a deadly lunch. Claire's voice on the other end was strained. It's not. She's locked herself in her office all day. She won't see anyone. She's not signing documents. She canceled all her meetings. I'm worried about her. She trailed off, but I understood. Seraphina's bipolar disorder. It was back. This time, it was the depression. Has this happened before? I asked. Yes, but this feels different. It feels worse. Claire's voice cracked. Mr. Vance, I know this is an incredible imposition, but could you possibly come to the office? Yesterday, when she was with you, her mood, it was the best it's been in years. I was silent. Me? What am I supposed to do? I'm not a therapist. Besides, I'm trying to get away from her, not run toward her. Her mood isn't my problem. That's what my brain was saying. But my mouth, betraying all common sense, said, text me the address. I hung up and raked my hands through my hair in frustration. I had to be losing my mind. But the image of Seraphina's cold face, the memory of her cool skin when she took my arm, I couldn't just ignore it. Fine. I'll consider it payback for her saving me from Leo. I'll check on her, and I'm out. No attachments. Half an hour later, I was standing in the lobby of Orion Global. The sleek, imposing skyscraper was the heart of Seraphina's empire, a testament to her genius and ambition, dominating the midtown skyline. Claire was waiting for me, looking at me like I was the cavalry. Mr. Vance, thank you so much for coming. She led me to the private executive elevator, which whisked us silently to the top floor. Outside the CEO's office, a few senior executives were pacing anxiously. When they saw me, their faces mirrored the expressions I'd seen at the food truck park: shock, confusion, and a healthy dose of disdain. I ignored them. Claire pushed open the heavy office door and gestured for me to go in. I stepped inside. Seraphina stood with her back to me, looking out the massive floor-to-ceiling window at the city below. She was still in a suit, but her silhouette seemed incredibly small and fragile, like a butterfly with broken wings. The entire office was saturated with a heavy, suffocating pressure. I cleared my throat. Hey, I'm here. She didn't turn. I forced myself to walk over and stand beside her. Your assistant said you've barricaded yourself in here. What's the matter? The company finally going bankrupt, I said, defaulting to my usual flippant tone. Damn, this atmosphere is grim. What am I even supposed to say? Cheer up. I suck at this. Maybe I should tell her a joke? No, my jokes would probably just make it worse. Still no response. I was starting to get annoyed. Hello, you gonna say something? Or are you just gonna stand there? What's her deal? Did she call me all the way down here just to be a statue? This is a waste of my time. I could be fishing right now. Just as my internal grumbling reached its peak, Seraphina finally moved. She turned around slowly. I froze. Her face was a blank mask, but her eyes were a terrifying, bottomless void. All the ice, all the sharpness was gone, replaced by a profound emptiness and despair. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible fist. It actually hurt. You should go, she said, her voice a raw, broken whisper. You're not welcome here. Go. I don't know where the anger came from, but I shot forward and grabbed her wrist. It was terrifyingly thin and cold as stone. I came all the way down here. You think I'm just going to leave because you told me to? What would that do to my reputation? Crap, her hands are freezing. Has she even eaten today? She looks terrible. This is such a pain. Muttering internally, I pulled her over to the leather couch and practically pushed her down onto it. Seat, don't move. I scanned the room and saw a small kitchenette. I walked over and started rummaging around. Coffee's a bad idea. It'll just amp up her anxiety. These pastries look stale. What's in the fridge? Milk? Okay, a glass of warm milk couldn't hurt. At least it'll warm her up. A few minutes later, I placed a steaming mug on the coffee table in front of her. Drink it, I ordered. Serafina looked from a mug to me, and for the first time, a tiny flicker of light appeared in her vacant eyes. She didn't move. My patience snapped. I picked up the mug and held it to her lips. I said, drink it. Don't you understand English? My actions were rough. My tone was harsh. But Serafina, as if in a trance, obediently parted her lips and began to take small sips. The warm milk seemed to thaw her from the inside out. When she finished, I slammed the mug back on the table. There, you drank the milk. I paid back my debt from last night. I'm leaving. I turned and walked toward the door without a backward glance. Gotta get out of here. This vibe is contagious. Her depression is a threat to my coasting. I reached the door, my hand on the handle. From behind me, a tiny, trembling voice. Don't go. Chapter 7. My hand froze on the doorknob. I didn't turn around. What now? Is she latching onto me? I'm not her personal emotional support animal. Stay. Serafina's voice was still faint, but clearer this time. Just for a little while. I made a frustrated sound in the back of my throat. Why should I? Are you paying me? God, I hate this clingy stuff. I could be at home, so close to beating this new video game. My brain was screaming at me to leave, but my feet were cemented to the floor. I heard a faint shuffling sound behind me. Her cool, clean scent was suddenly right behind me. Then, I felt a gentle tug on the hem of my jacket. The pull was so light, I could have shaken it off without a second thought. But I didn't. I stood there, paralyzed, the spot where she was touching my jacket tingling like it had been hit with a mild electric shock. 1 hour, Serafina said from behind me. Stay with me for 1 hour, and I'll sign over Orion's development plot at Hudson Yards to you. I spun around. The Hudson Yards plot? It was the single most valuable piece of undeveloped real estate in the city. My father had been trying to acquire it for months, but Serafina had earmarked it for Orion's new global headquarters. And she was just giving it to me. This woman is insane. A piece of land that valuable, just giving it away? Does she think her family prints money? Oh wait, they basically do. Still, that's no way to run a business. She's completely lost it. I stared at her. She stared back. Her eyes were no longer empty. They held a sliver of light, a cautious, hopeful plea. She looked like a stray animal, terrified of being abandoned again. And just like that, my annoyance evaporated, replaced by a confusing mix of frustration and tenderness. Who wants your stupid land? I grumbled, but I turned around and stomped back to the couch. 1 hour, not a minute more. Serafina's eyes lit up. It was the first time I had ever seen such a clear, unguarded emotion on her face, like a firework exploding in the night sky. She sat down in the armchair across from me. She didn't speak, just watched me. The silence became awkward again. Her intense gaze was making me squirm. What are you looking at? Never seen a handsome guy before? I know I'm good looking, but you don't have to stare. I feel like an exhibit at the zoo. I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through TikTok. The sounds of ridiculous voiceovers and trending songs filled the quiet office. I got lost in the videos, letting out an occasional snort of laughter. Ha, that cat is so dumb. The special effects on this are terrible. Hilarious. I was completely in my own world, so much so that I didn't notice Serafina sitting across from me. Her lips curved into a gentle smile. She just sat there quietly, listening to the noise from my phone, listening to the chaotic commentary in my head, her expression growing softer and softer. The oppressive, suffocating atmosphere in the room had, without me even realizing it, completely disappeared. The hour flew by. My phone alarm went off, and I immediately jumped to my feet. Time's up. I'm out. This time, Serafina didn't stop me. She simply stood up and said, "Thank you." I waved a dismissive hand over my shoulder and walked out without looking back. Finally, freedom. Still, the way she looked earlier was kind of pathetic. Whatever. Not my problem. Time to go home and coast. I went home and crashed, sleeping for 10 hours straight. The next day, I was woken by my father's bellowing. "Julian, you worthless brat, get down here this instant." I stumbled downstairs to see my father holding a document, his hands visibly shaking. When did you acquire the Hudson Yards development plot? I blinked. She actually did it? My father slapped the document down on the table. It was an official deed transfer from Orion Global. In the space for the new owner was my name, in bold, undeniable print. "What on earth did you do to that Sterling girl?" my father demanded, his face a mask of utter bewilderment. "I've seen people given cars, even apartments, to seal a deal. But $1 billion piece of Manhattan real estate? Who are you?" That's what I wanted to know. The incident became the biggest mystery in New York's high society. No one could figure out why the untouchable Serafina Sterling was so fixated on a worthless slacker like me. Conspiracy theories started to fly. I must have some kind of blackmail material on her. To which I could only think, I wish. I can't even remember her phone number. The land deal completely changed how my father looked at me. His old expression of utter disappointment was replaced with a new one of suspicious curiosity. He even started dropping hints about me, maybe taking on an internship at the family company. I quickly shut that down, insisting it was a fluke, a total accident, and that I was still the same dedicated coaster he knew and loathed. An internship? I'd rather have a root canal. A few days later, I was in the middle of bottling a new batch of Spice Pear liqueur when her name flashed on my phone screen again. My hand twitched. What now? I thought this was a one-time thing. Is there some kind of post-rescue customer service I signed up for? I answered, resigned to my fate. "What is it now?" I said, my tone intentionally rude. "There's a charity gala tonight. You're coming with me," she said. It wasn't a request. It was an order. "No chance," I shot back immediately. "Those things are the worst. It's just a room full of fake people kissing each other's asses. I'd rather stay home and drink, and I'd have to wear a suit. Those things are basically tailored straitjackets." "Leo Cartwright will be there," Serafina said coolly, dropping his name like a bomb. I immediately tensed up. What's that moron going to be there for? No doubt to try and cause trouble for me while sucking up to you. "What do I care if he's there?" I said, feigning indifference. "He's been trying to get a date with me." Silence. "Oh, that son of a bitch. That arrogant prick actually thinks he has a chance. A toad lusting after a swan. Okay, a swan who is maybe a little bit crazy, but still way out of his league." A hot, unfamiliar surge of anger rose in my chest. Where and when? I bit out. On the other end of the line, I could almost hear Serafina's triumphant smirk. That evening, I showed up at the gala dressed in a ridiculously expensive custom suit my father had forced on me years ago, a thunderous expression on my face. Serafina was waiting just inside the entrance. She was wearing a stunning, backless black evening gown. She looked regal, dangerous, and impossibly sexy, like a black rose with thorns of diamond. Her entrance had silenced the entire ballroom. She glided over to me and took my arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Once again, I was enveloped in that cool, clean scent. "You came," she said. "Yeah, well," I grumbled. "Let's get this straight. I'm just a shield. The second this thing is over, we're even. Damn it. Why does she have to look so good tonight? That dress. Her back. Don't look, Julian, don't look." My eyes, complete traitors, drifted to the smooth, pale skin of her back. I thought I felt her stiffen slightly. The tips of her ears seemed to have a faint pinkish hue. Before I could process that, our least favorite person in the world materialized with 2 glasses of champagne. Leo Cartwright, looking slick and smug, saw our linked arms and his eyes turned red. "Vance, a slacker like you has no right to be on Miss Sterling's arm," he hissed. I ignored him. Wasting breath on an idiot is bad for my health. My silence only enraged him further. He turned to Serafina, his face a mask of tragic concern. "Ms. Sterling, why can't you see him for what he really is?" Just then, the host of the evening, the venerable business titan Mr. Harrison, ambled over. "Serafina, my dear, and who is this young man?" he asked, his eyes twinkling. Before Serafina could speak, Leo jumped in. "Mr. Harrison, this is Julian Vance. You know, from the Vance family. The one who doesn't do anything." "Ah, Mr. Harrison said, a knowing, dismissive look crossing his face. I scoffed internally. Another old fossil who judges a book by its cover. Serafina's expression turned arctic. She was about to speak, but I beat her to it. I gave her hand a slight squeeze, a signal to stay quiet. Then I turned to Mr. Harrison with a wide, lazy grin. "Mr. Harrison, a pleasure. Yep, that's me. Julian Vance. Everyone says I'm useless, and you know what? They're right. Being useless is great. You just eat, drink, and never have to think. It's the life. Mr. Harrison's brow furrowed. Leo looked like he'd just won a lottery. I looked at them both, my mind worrying. This guy, Harrison, he's a collector. Bourbon, specifically. The bottle of Pappy Van Winkle in his private study is probably his pride and joy. It's a shame, though. It's been stored improperly. It's already starting to turn. Another 3 months, and it'll be completely ruined. The thought was just a fleeting observation in my head. But Serafina, whose arm was still linked with mine, suddenly spoke. She looked at Mr. Harrison and said calmly, "Mr. Harrison, I hear you recently acquired a very rare bottle of Pappy Van Winkle." He blinked, then roared with laughter. "Ah, Serafina, you have excellent sources." "Indeed I did. It's the jewel of my collection." She nodded, then shifted her gaze. My companion, Julian, might not seem like much, but he has a surprisingly deep knowledge of spirits. She looked at me, and her eyes held a hint of encouragement and mischief. "Julian, didn't you just have a thought about Mr. Harrison's bourbon? Why don't you share it with him?" My blood ran cold. I thought, what? I didn't say anything. That was in my head. My eyes snapped to hers. She was looking back at me, a mask of pure innocence on her face. And in that instant, a preposterous, impossible, terrifying idea struck me like a bolt of lightning. She can hear my thoughts. The world went silent. I stared at Serafina, my mind a maelstrom of white noise, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. She can hear me. She can hear me. She's been able to hear me from the very beginning. That explains everything. Why my act never worked, why she was never disgusted, why she kept getting more interested. She wasn't watching the performance. She was listening to the director's commentary. She's been playing me this entire time. I'm not just screwed anymore. I'm dead, buried, and my ghost is being audited by the IRS. My face cycled through a dozen shades of panic. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead. And across from me, Serafina Sterling, watching the horror dawn on my face, finally let the mask drop. Her cold, beautiful eyes lit up with the unmistakable, triumphant glint of a prankster who just pulled off the joke of the century. Then, she had the audacity to wink at me. To me, that wink was a declaration of war. Mr. Harrison and Leo were still oblivious. "Oh, Mr. Harrison said, intrigued, young Vance has an opinion on my bourbon. Please share it with us. If you're right, I'll open the bottle tonight and we'll all have a taste." Leo sneered. What could a party boy know about fine bourbon? Mr. Harrison, don't listen to him. His expertise probably ends at knowing the name Jack Daniels. My brain was scrambled eggs. What could I say? That I'm psychic and I foresaw the tragic demise of his prized liquor? They'd have me committed. Seeing me frozen in place, Serafina nudged me with her elbow. A voice, warm and amused, bloomed directly inside my head. "Don't worry. Just tell him what you were thinking." I physically recoiled. It wasn't my own thought. It was hers. She was telepathic. You can talk to me in here, I thought, screaming into the void of my own mind. Yes, her mental voice replied, crisp and clear. "Now hurry up. Mr. Harrison is waiting. Don't embarrass me." Embarrass you? I thought my soul was going to leave my body. There was no way out. It was time to burn the whole thing down. I took a deep breath, tried to project an air of mystical wisdom. "Mr. Harrison," I began slowly, looking him in the eye, "your bottle of Pappy, is it stored in the mahogany cabinet in your study?" His smile faltered. "How did you know that?" "And that cabinet is against the east-facing wall. With the recent humidity and the temperature fluctuations from morning to evening, even without direct sunlight, the climate changes have begun to affect the bourbon's integrity." I was just saying the things I had inexplicably known a moment before. Okay, screw it. Let's go full psychic. Nothing left to lose. Mr. Harrison's expression had changed completely. The condescension was gone, replaced by a deep, focused concern. "Go on," he urged. "Bourbon is resilient, but it hates drastic temperature swings," I said, the words flowing more easily now. "If you were to taste that bottle right now, the initial notes would still be there, but the finish would have a faint, almost unnoticeable sourness. If you keep it in those conditions for another 3 months, the spirit will be completely broken. It will taste more like vinegar than bourbon." When I finished, you could have heard a pin drop. Leo's mouth was hanging open, but for once, he was speechless. What I'd said was too specific, too technical to be a lucky guess. Mister. Harrison stared at me, sweat forming on his brow. He slapped his thigh. Someone, quickly, bring me that bottle from my study, and get Mr. Abelev in here. Mr. Abelev was the most respected spirits sommelier in the country. A few frantic minutes later, the bottle was presented, and Mr. Abelev was summoned. As the entire gala watched, he uncorked the bourbon, poured a small amount, swirled it, nosed it, and finally tasted it. Everyone held their breath. After a long, dramatic moment, Mr. Abelev set the glass down and looked at Mr. Harrison with a grave expression. Mr. Harrison, he announced to the silent room. This young man is 100% correct. The crowd erupted. Everyone was looking at me like I was some kind of wizard. Leo Cartwright's face was a kaleidoscope of shame and disbelief. And in the middle of it all, I slowly turned my head and looked at the architect of my triumph and my humiliation. Serafina was looking up at me, her beautiful eyes shining with a light I had never seen before. There was admiration in them, pride, and an ocean of unconcealed amusement. So, her voice danced in my head. How does it feel to be the hero? I looked down at her, and with all the venom I could muster, I thought back at her. You are so going to pay for this, Serafina Sterling. Chapter 10 for the rest of the night. I was the main event. The same corporate titans who had dismissed me an hour earlier were now lining up to shake my hand, calling me Maestro Vance. Mr. Harrison, overcome with gratitude, practically tried to adopt me. Leo Cartwright had vanished, presumably to go crawl into a hole somewhere. I was exhausted from the constant glad-handing and questioning. Through it all, Serafina stood silently by my side, the picture of a proud partner, gracefully deflecting the more aggressive social climbers. Whenever I was cornered, a little hint would pop into my head. The bald one on your left is in real estate. He's trying to pump you for information. Ignore him. The stout man on your right is his biggest competitor. You can talk to him about food. He's a gourmand. Stop frowning. Smile. You look better when you smile. I felt like a puppet, and she was holding all the strings. The feeling was infuriating, and also strangely thrilling. When the gala finally ended, I practically dragged Serafina out of the ballroom. The moment the doors of her Bentley closed behind us, I exploded. Serafina, I stared her down. What is the meaning of all this? She simply looked at me, her expression calm, as if admiring a kitten that was trying its best to be intimidating. The meaning of what? She asked innocently. I just think you're fascinating like this. Her real answer echoed in my mind. I felt like I was going to have an aneurysm. Fascinating? You've been treating me like your personal entertainment. You think that's fascinating? I haven't been playing you, Serafina said, her expression turning serious. I just like listening to your thoughts. It's a million times more interesting than a quarterly earnings report. Her honesty was disarming. I was left speechless. How long? I asked through gritted teeth. How long have you been able to do this? Since the first day we met. So all my plans to sabotage our date. You knew about all of them. Yes, she nodded, the ghost of a smile returning. The plan to take me to a gaming lounge for an all-nighter was particularly creative. The world went black for a second. The psychic damage was immense. I buried my face in my hands and let out a defeated groan. This is an invasion of privacy. This has to be illegal. I protested weakly. Oh, she raised an eyebrow. Go ahead and sue me. I'd love to see you try and convince a judge that a woman can read minds. I slumped back against the leather seat. Checkmate. So what do you want from me? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. To continue this sham of a relationship, so you can listen to me complain about you in my head for the rest of your life. Serafina was quiet for a long time. The atmosphere in the car shifted. The playful mockery was gone, replaced by something heavier, more vulnerable. She looked at me, her gaze deep and serious. Julian, she said, her voice soft, have you ever considered what your thoughts, what your mind, means to me? Hier, confused. What does it mean? It's a free 24/7 comedy podcast, I guess. I have bipolar disorder, she stated, not as a rumor, but as a simple fact. When I'm manic, the world feels like it's closing in, trying to crush me. I get so irritable, I feel like I could break everything around me. When I'm depressive, living feels pointless. I just want to disappear. She gestured vaguely at the skyline outside. My heart gave a painful throb. But, she said, her eyes locking onto mine, the day I met you, the moment I heard your thoughts, everything changed. When I'm agitated, listening to you internally rant about stupid things calms the storm in my head. When I feel hopeless, listening to you think about food, or music, or some obscure movie you want to see. It reminds me that maybe this world isn't such a terrible place after all. She reached out and placed her hand over mine. It was still cool to the touch, but for the first time it didn't feel cold. Julian, she said, her voice full of a raw sincerity that struck me to my very core. Your thoughts on my medicine. They're the only thing in this world that makes me feel sane. My mind, which had been racing all night, came to a complete and sudden stop. That's what this is about. My thoughts are her medicine. I looked into her eyes, which were filled with an earnest, desperate truth. And for the first time, I felt the ground give way beneath my feet. This woman, this impossible, infuriating Ice Queen CO I had tried so hard to push away. It turned out that in her silent, chaotic world, my stupid, rambling, innermost thoughts were the only light. End.